Hello everyone, this is Borna Kazerani from Melbourne, Australia. Hope you're doing fine. First of all, thank you so much for all your lovely comments and messages regarding on my show here on Instagram. And tonight, I'm going to have a conversation with Tom Kemp, who was born in Cambridge, UK in 1966. He started learning to make ceramic vessels on a wheel about 9 years ago. He taught himself by watching YouTube videos and went to communal studio to use their equipment. He makes large porcelain vessels and he writes on them using brushes, which he learned to use as a calligrapher many years ago. He takes language out of the writing, leaving just a record of process and swift human movement. Tom has had a couple of careers. He trained formally as a theoretical computer scientist and followed the sequence of postdoctoral research and programming posts. In parallel, he was learning to be an artist by studying the writing of ancient manuscripts, not their contents, but how they were made. In particular, he worked out of the details of Romancing writing technique, which has informed all his brushwork, both readable and abstract, allowing the way he learned to make porcelain vessels on a potter's wheel, an activity he describes as a calligraphy in 3D, and which now form the large surface on which he continues to write. Now I would like to ask Tom to join me for a conversation, and let me send him an invitation. Hello! How are you doing, Tom?
Very well. So we spent a long time adjusting my camera before all this, and I guess I'm cutting my head off now, am I? Yeah?
Yeah, that's right. That's like a time and adjust it. So that's fine.
There we go. There we go. I love these live. So I like things when things go a bit.
All right. You are cutting off. So are you using Wi-Fi or are you using data?
I'm using data.
Or data.
Okay, I'm using data.
Okay, so all right. So then, and did you change your location, or is that the same
location
one? That's where you were sitting.
Same as we were.
Same location. Okay, so let's start it and see how it goes. So do you want to say hi to those who are watching right now?
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us.
That's absolutely fine. All right, so you've got amazing actual biography. So, Tom, you have had a couple of careers. As I mentioned in your biography, you trained formally as a theoretical computer scientist and followed a sequence of postdoctoral research and programming posts. In parallel, you were learning to be an artist by studying the writing of ancient manuscripts, not their contents, but how they were made. Two extremely different things. So tell me what happened.
I think one side of my brain thinks like this, and the other side of my brain thinks like this. And I'm stuck with my one brain, so it tries to do two things all the time. I'm very interested in using my hands and interacting with the material of the earth, but at the same time, I'm very interested in intellectual pursuits. I'm interested in, I'm basically trained as a mathematician, so which is as kind of abstract as you can get, really. So I don't know why, but I'm drawn to those two seemingly opposite ways of thinking or being, but for me, they're all one thing. So I don't see any difference, really.
Okay, all right, so we will explain. I want to give you a suggestion. I want you to pick up your phone and go wherever it's the internet better.
Okay. Sorry about this. This is the trouble.
Yeah, just like...
Okay. I now live in a very remote part of the country where the signals are not good, Wi-Fi or phone signals. So is this any better?
Not much difference, but it seems like it's getting better. I need to send you a request again, actually. I can't see you here. I'm just waiting for Tom. All right, Tom, I'm going to send you another request. All right.
There we go.
Better.
Yes.
Much better.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes. I'm going to have to hold my phone.
Okay. Okay. Great. So, okay, perfect. Several years ago, you started learning ceramics on your own, and I'm really interested to find out what was the first thing that you drew your attention in making ceramics, and I would like to talk to me about kind of your inner connection with what you do as an artist. Two different questions.
Yes. Okay. Those are very difficult questions, and I'm sure everybody who asks those questions too say, oh, that's a very difficult question. And it's because it's quite difficult to put these things into words. You spend your life, and I'm now, my artistic career is maybe 30 or 40 years. You put your life into these things, and you don't ever have to say them, you know, because you're doing something. You're not saying it, you're doing it. And trying to convert that doing into words is a very difficult, complex process. But I can say a few things. So the ceramics for me started not really as an artistic pursuit. It started as a craft I wanted to learn just because I didn't know anything about it. It has a very long history around the world, and it was just something to do. I moved to London about 9 years ago. I moved to London and was looking for something extra to do in my life. So I went on a course to learn to make pots on a wheel. And something about the live movement of this clay, as you draw the clay up to make a vessel, it kind of appears out of nowhere. You start with a lump of mud, and it becomes this beautiful, elegant form growing upwards, and it's almost like you have nothing to do with it. It's like you're there and watching this thing grow. And something about that reminded me of the live feeling of writing with a brush. So when you write with a brush, as you'll see later on my pots, for example, the live performance is very important. And what's more important than that is, unlike dance or other forms of human movement, the written mark is a record of the performance itself. So when you finish, normally with a dance, for example, you finish, or let's say an orchestral symphony. Yes, the musicians are playing away, and they stop, and it's gone. There's nothing left. It's evaporated into the air, and all the movement of the dance, all the movement of the musicians, the sound, it's all just gone. But with writing, you put all the subtlety of human movement into the writing, just tiniest movements with your fingers. And all of that subtlety, all of those very, very fine details are all completely captured in the written mark in a most, in a really deep way that resonates with us forever, really. Whenever we look at a manuscript, something that's written by hand, say from several thousand years ago, there's something really profound about experiencing that object, which was made by somebody's hand, somebody live, breathing, someone with worries, someone with joy, somebody just living as a human being, put their current existence into those few marks. And we have the enormous privilege of being able to touch that being and feel it for just a few seconds, what it was like back then, thousands of years ago. And of course, you just realize immediately, well, like everybody knows anyway, we're just human beings all together trying to get on with this life and working out how it works. And and along the way, we leave records of ourselves. And one kind of record is writing, but another kind of record is ceramics, is pottery. And that's a really important record because going back into time, that's the earliest, when we find fragments of ceramic, we know that human beings were living around there at that time, because clay, when it turns into ceramic, can't go back again. Ceramic can't be recycled. It's completely changed from the earth when it's fired into a different chemical form that can't be recycled. So it stays around forever, basically. So when we go back, when we look at archaeological sites and find pieces of ceramic, we know human beings were there, because human beings are the only species who make ceramic. And if you go, what was I going to say? Yes, so ceramic. But as well, because ceramic is so inert, because it's made in such a way with the fire, I mean, the really, really intense heat, turns this stuff into something which doesn't change ever. When you see I had an amazing experience just a few weeks ago, looking at a video, I think it was on our news, our national news, of divers who had gone down to the bottom of the ocean, and to find a shipwreck, and it was a shipwreck from about 500 years ago, and it was porcelain bowls coming from China to Europe, and the ship had been destroyed, but at the bottom of the sea there are all these Chinese porcelain bowls all just laid out everywhere, and they are all absolutely perfect. They are all exactly the same as the day they came out of the kiln 500 years before. They have not changed in the slightest. And if you leave ceramic and just let it sit there on the top of a mountain, or in the middle of a desert, you leave it there, nothing will happen to it, and it will last as long as the planet lasts. As long as the sun doesn't explode, which it will eventually, as long as the sun doesn't engulf us. So in about 7 billion years' time, when we all die, up to that point, any ceramic you make has the chance of staying around all that time. It's the one chance we have of being immortal. So I try and play with those two things. The writing and the ceramic are ways of recording a human being in existence, because I'll be long gone, I'll be dead very soon, and then I'll never be heard of again. But my work, well, in 100 years, 50 years, whatever, after that, my work, the only thing I've got left is the things I make now. And yeah, sorry, because that's a very, very long answer to your very short question.
You're talking, Tom. I want to listen to you for hours and hours, and that's the way you actually were describing was quite well done. So that's how you make connection between yourself and what you're doing.
Yes.
As an artist.
And everybody else, because I interact with people through my work.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that we see a lot in your work is three demonstrational, like 3D calligraphy on the ceramics you make. Tell me a little bit about these. And before that, because you learned calligraphy years ago, am I right?
Yes. So let me explain that. And I'm in the wrong place to show you. So just wait. I'm going to go very slowly, as you told me, to stop everybody becoming seat. So just let me go and get my brushes. Oh, here's some. Okay.
Turn on. There is an option. You can reverse the camera.
Oh, can I? Oh, fantastic.
There.
Oh, yes.
There it is.
I'm such a novice. Right, now, let me just show you. So first of all, here's a shot of all my mess. Look at this. So I've moved here quite recently, and I haven't unpacked properly. And this is all my kind of just years and years of collected tools, and I don't even know what I've got. Even old ceramic from years ago, my first ever pots. Look at these. They're horrible, but there we go, Now, what I was going to do is go slowly into my studio. And what I wanted to get was, because I already prepared this before. Right. I'm going back. Now, so this, hopefully the signal's better now. What I've got here are 3 brushes. And you can see they have a very particular shape. They're not pointed, so they're not the same as normal painting brushes. They're square.
Put them on.
Oh.
And then show up.
There we are. So these brushes are cut square. How's that?
And put them on the. You can put them on the floor.
Okay. Yes, good. The important point is that they have this square at the end. So they're very thin one way, but they're very wide in the other direction. And these tools they're very traditional Western calligraphic tools. And by that I mean they were designed, just turn you around, they were designed to write very large Roman capital letters on buildings during the Roman Empire, so about 2,000 years ago. And I don't know if you've ever seen ruined Roman buildings. They're all over, the whole of the old Roman Empire. They always have a large inscription along the top saying, who paid for this thing, who died to have it set up, whatever. But they always have very large inscriptions. And these inscriptions were made, it turns out, by writing very quickly with one of these brushes onto the stone, just directly onto the stone, the marble. Then they were carved out to keep them in place, and then they were painted red again. So what we're seeing when we look at those inscriptions is handwriting, just frozen into the marble by carving. And I learned this technique. So it was just one of those crazy things you do as a kid when you're a bit obsessive like I am. It's something I just wanted to learn to do, and I started practicing and researching, and it turned out that nobody else really knew how to do this, so I had to discover a lot of the techniques. There was one guy realized how it was done, but he left out a lot of the details, so I spent a lot of time learning the details, and then I published a book about it. So it was just one of those.
You did?
Yes.
Why didn't you mention on your biography? Tell me about that book. What's that book about?
Oh, it's just a book about this Roman writing. I don't know. I've done too many things. But the interesting thing for me was turning that formal writing, because it's quite. There are some examples of videos on my Instagram feed earlier on. I'm showing how I do the big red letters. So I learned to make this very formal writing, but I got something about the writing wasn't really touching me very much. And I wanted to know what it was that I was missing. And what I realized was, what I really wanted to do was enjoy the physicality of the writing, the making of it, the movement, the amazing marks you get. So what I'm going to do, yes, the shapes.
You like the shape?
I'm going to move into another room and show you something else, slowly. Let me turn it round. So here is, thank you. This is a very old painting I did from a long time ago. I think thank you, it's 23 or 4 years ago I did this. It's abstract writing, written with one of these edged brushes, these edged tools, but there's no letters. So you can see there are no forms, there's nothing you can read there. But it looks like writing. It's not a picture of a cat. It's not something recognizable, except it looks like writing. It's almost like it's a painting of writing, but it's not a painting of anything. It is writing. It just doesn't have any language. And I became more and more interested. I'll turn it around. I became more and more interested in the writing itself. So ignoring the language part of writing. And the word language comes from the Latin for tongue, lingua. Language is about speech. It's all about this bit. Yeah. I want to know about this bit, the hand, the body, the use of the body to make marks and record ourselves making those marks. So I get rid of the language from writing and leave just the whatever is left over, which is these graphical movements, but very, very formal, very careful, very deliberate. They're not messy. I'm not a painter, so I don't do anything like abstract expressionism or anything like this. No, it's nothing like that. It's very, very careful. I know it looks sometimes like it's very random or just going by chance, but it's not at all. It's all very, very carefully done in the spirit of a scribe, of a calligrapher, someone who writes formal writing just with no letters. So I don't think I've got any other examples just around here, but that's what that formal writing turned into.
Can you reverse the camera again and go closer and just move the camera smoothly and let us see?
Okay, here we are. So let's see. Is that still in focus? I hope so. And what intrigues me about this is people say to me things like, "Oh, it looks like Japanese, it looks like Arabic, it looks like Chinese," but it's got little elements of all those in it. But of course it has, because we all, let me just turn around again, because we all use this to write with. We all use our hand. We're all the same species. Despite the difference in culture, culture's a tiny, tiny thing compared to the fact that we are all human beings. And our bodies all work in the same way. We're all affected by gravity in exactly the same way. We all fall over and hurt our knees. And what this writing shows me is how much we rely on the tiny movements of our fingers, very, very subtle. But because we've only all got this one hand, or maybe this other hand, but we've all only got one hand, it only works in the same way for everybody. So actually, everybody's writing around the world and throughout history is all the same. The only difference between writings really is the language involved, the formality of the letters and the characters, but otherwise all the movements, all the shapes, all the graphical marks and the distinctions between spaces and marks, all these relationships, you see that in everybody's writing. Every culture has the same feeling of writing. And if you took any, for example, if you wrote a note to yourself in your natural language, so for you it'd be Farsi, for example, if you just wrote, quite quickly write something, now take a tiny part of it and blow it up, expand it, zoom in like this, you'll see exactly the same shapes. And that's what intrigues me, that if anybody who can write does that, everybody's writing is the same. It all looks identical to me anyway. And I'm interested in that fact that our human beingness, our humanity, our, all the things we fight about around the world for centuries, the things we fight about are so silly compared to the fact that we're all able to do the same things and think in the same way. And it's, I'm always astonished by how little we feel we sometimes have in common with each other when you look at what we actually all do. You're wearing a scarf because you're cold. I know you're cold because I'm a human being. It must be cold there.
This is very warm. It's freezing here in Melbourne, Australia. Yeah, very, very cold actually. And I don't know if I can show you if I go out. I don't know. Hang on. Can you see it?
Yeah, the dark. Oh, right. Oh dear. Yes. Okay. Well, of course, I'm on the opposite side of the planet.
You can see here now.
Yes. Yes. I don't envy you.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
I'm opening my door.
Another. You try.
That's what it's like.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. So that's my. It's an English summer, which means it's raining. But there we are. At least it's warm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Beautiful. So, another interesting thing about work is the combination of colors in them. White, black, black, gray, and dark blue, or blue navy, or whatever it's called. Why do you only use these 3 or 4 colors?
And red.
What's your obsession?
Okay, red, good question. Yeah. Good question. That's because I'm a scribe, because my tradition is writing. So if you look at almost all writing around the world is usually on a pale surface. So papyrus, marble, paper, calf skin, vellum, parchment. They're all very pale surfaces. And on top of that, historically, we've always seen black writing made with soot, made with the carbon from the fireplace, which is naturally very, very black. And you mix the soot with a natural gum, like something which comes out of a tree or animal, boiling down animals, and you make ink. So ink is always black. The surface is always pale or white. So that's those 2. And then traditionally red would be the contrasting color for black and white. So I use a little bit of red every now and again for that contrast. And blue as well, you see in manuscripts very often. You see, because blue was introduced as lapis lazuli, or lapis lazuli in many cultures. I mean, it started in the Middle East, where the mines are, the lapis lazuli mines, and it's very, very expensive, very rare, but it's ground down into this amazing, very bold blue color that you see in manuscripts from around about 1,000 years ago. And again, it's a contrasting color to the black and the white and the red. So those 4 colors, they're my primary colors. I can show you some examples. Did that make sense?
You do. And I like that question, actually, because I didn't know actually what's the story behind that.
There you go. There you go. So we've moved into a different room now. I'm going to turn the camera around and show you some detail. Is this going okay for you? Am I okay, fine. So let me turn this around.
I love it. I want to listen to you for hours and hours. Yes.
So this is at the front of my house. So this is I'm working in a house. It's a bit of a mess. Ignore all that. Here are some big pots. Yeah, they're quite. So just to give you an idea of scale, if I put my hand there, then that's and pull back a bit. I can't even pull back enough. It's too big. You see yeah. So they're drying now. This one I've deliberately deformed, so it's got these bumps in it. But this is just clay. It's not ceramic yet. It's still. You can hear it's just. It's not ringing like a ceramic would. It hasn't been fired, so it's still just dry mud, really. And there's another one, a bit more of a normal shape. And in the corner of this room, if I go around slowly, you'll see this big machine. There it is. There's my kiln. It's a big box.
Oh.
Yes, it's huge. It's a big box. And inside, I'll just open it. So if I just open the kiln, it's probably full of things at the moment. Yeah. So I use an electric kiln, which essentially is just a big oven. It gets very hot, so that the temperature I reach is about nearly 1,300 degrees centigrade, Celsius. So if you think a normal oven goes to about 200 Celsius, this is 1,200 or 1,300. Nearly 6 times hotter. It's heated by all these this element here. So many potters use fire. They use gas or wood or oil, but I use electricity. And well, they have different effects. But I find that at the moment I'm finding the kiln with electricity just a bit more convenient. But I'd like to use fire as well. Anyway, that's where everything gets fired. And on the other side, if I can. Yes?
You literally bake them.
Yes. That's right, exactly. So in that process, all the water that's inside all the water that's in the ceramic, in the mud, in the clay, gets expelled in the heating. Not only the water which is just evaporates, that's one kind of water, but there's another water. There are water molecules attached to the clay there's water in the clay itself in a chemical way, attached to the clay as molecules, and they get expelled, which means the clay, the particles of the clay come closer together as the water disappears. Yes, so clay always shrinks when it gets baked or fired, but it gets much, much harder. And then it gets to the point where you can put water in it and you can drink out of it and it doesn't leak. So let's just turn around and show you the rest. There's a few things here. So I just had a shop. I recently had an online shop, and everything's sold. So I'm showing you some old pieces. I know, thank you. That's a great surprise. But I thought I'd show you some pieces which are hanging around because I don't know why they're still here, but they are. This is a typical piece of mine. So this one, it's you can get an idea of the size. Almost everything I use is porcelain. And if I do this now, you can hear the difference. That's definitely fired. And it's got a blue brushstroke on it, and you can see how it's made. If I just, you've seen the videos where I take a brush and go quite quickly onto the surface, and it just spreads out in a natural way. So you get this amazing wave of color going across. And I always say it's not a picture of anything. It's not a picture of a thing, it is a thing. This is the wave itself. It's not, I haven't taken a brush and carefully drawn or painted a wave shape here or a splash here. This is the splash. It's a record of the splash. So that the few moments I took to make this are all, like writing, are all carefully recorded in great detail forever in this piece of ceramic. And as we go round, you can see I start.
But how come?
Sorry, yes.
How come you're not running down when you like slap on the surface of the ceramic with the brush? How come the color is not running down?
Another good question. So what happens is when you you fire the ceramic twice. The first time you fire it, it becomes not very hard, but quite hard and porous. And so it sucks in water very easily. And that's used in order to get the glaze to stay onto the pot. So let me turn it around again. So when it's first fired, it's very porous. So when I do that, it's like the clay is trying to grab hold of the water and it won't let it run. So if I do it quickly enough and I make the solution dilute the correct dilution, then there isn't time for this to drip before it's captured by the clay. So that's why. So as we carry on round, I'm continuing to make a stroke now. So for me, this is just a stroke I would make in Roman writing using one of these brushes, but it's just a lot freer. There's a lot less formality because it's a form I can choose how to make it. It's not like a letter R, which has got a definite rule about it. This is something I can do for myself. I can make up the rule. And as I get towards the end, I get faster and faster and come off the surface. And again, it leaves these trails as it leaves the surface. And I like it to be asymmetrical. So whenever you turn the pot around, you get a different view. So you can never really get bored of it. If you get bored of looking at it like that, you can just turn it around and see it like that. Or if you don't, you can almost get rid of the brush stroke altogether once you're a bit fed up with it. Some other examples. This is also porcelain, but it's black porcelain. So I colour the porcelain with a black colour, and you can see it's coloured all the way through. But I like using porcelain very much. I like the lightness. This is a very light thing. There's hardly any weight to this, but there's just a form. And again, there's one of these brush strokes, this time with white. This one's got a much slower brush stroke. It's a tall piece. Let's go back. This is a tall piece with a single brush stroke again, but much slower, not nearly so violent. But you can see the details. As you go slower, you get more, the brush is able to do more. There's more time for it to make, there's more time for the brush to make interesting strokes. And there we go, all the way up to the top. And then next to it is some red porcelain with a white brush stroke. And again, because of the speed, the slow speed of the brush, I can make it do really interesting things within the stroke itself. So that's that one. Okay.
If you go to one of those, if you go back, if you reverse the camera and go back to the blue one.
The little one.
Yeah, that's one. No, the other one, the blue one, the one that you use. That one. Yeah. I've noticed the brush, or like you use for your work, is quite heavy and big. My question is, like, I'm just wondering to know, is that something that makes your work easier or harder?
Much harder. It's much harder.
Tell me.
Yes. So when you let me go and get the brush. So I'm just going to go slowly get the brush so I can explain better. It's on the floor, isn't it? There it is. Okay, so this is an example. Let's stay in here. It's not so echoey. So it's quite heavy. You know, there's a lot of wood and metal and bristles, and I need to be able to control every single one of these bristles, and there are hundreds of them. When I make the stroke, I've got to make sure what's happening at this end is also is matching what's happening at this end, or that they're doing just something different, or that as I'm spreading the brush apart, so as I press it onto a surface like this, the friction with a big brush is enormous, really huge friction. So it's, in one way, it's more easy to control because you can go, it's forcing you to go slower, but at the same time, because of that big edge, many more things are happening at the same time than with a smaller brush, and I have to control all of that all the time as I make the stroke. So it's much more difficult to use a bigger brush. It's easy to make a mess, for sure. Many people, when I first started showing this on Instagram, I got a lot of trolls. A lot of people would say, you know, usual thing, my 3-year-old child could do better than that. And two things about that really annoy me. The first thing that annoys me is, how dare you use children as a measure of incompetence? You know, of all the people in the world, children are the one group who are learning the fastest. They're coming up with the most brilliant ideas. They're certainly offensive to use children as a measure of incompetence. So that's one thing. But anyway, but also, no, it's not. It's very difficult. And a 3-year-old child could certainly take a brush filled with paint, drop it on the floor, and there will be a mark on the floor, of course. But if they spilled a glass of milk, there'd also be a mark on the floor. It doesn't mean that the mark has any significance. It doesn't mean the mark has any any beauty, any aesthetic quality at all. That's one thing. But it also doesn't mean it has any meaning. Whereas I think, well, I'm trying to instill meaning in what I do, and the just because something looks slightly like something else doesn't mean it is something else. And it means that you can't, if you're making those judgments, it means you're not able to distinguish between good and bad, or between meaningful and non-meaningful. And so it's very difficult to have a conversation with someone who doesn't have those divisions in their mind. If they think everything which is vaguely round is a football, well, they're going to run into a lot of trouble if they start kicking things which are round. So anyway, that was just a small point about how, yes, it's more difficult than it looks.
Yes, I'm sure this conversation, or whatever it's called, this interview actually will help lots of people, you know, to understand why you're using that sort of brush, you know, in particular, one which, like, you're holding it right now. And okay, so my last question for you was, what usually happens?
Sorry, just 1 second. My little dog wanted to say hi. There we go. There she is. Hello, Sariff. Yes, she's a good girl. Yeah, she's very happy to see you. Okay.
That's beautiful.
Sorry, your last question?
Yeah. What usually happens to the ceramics you make, and where do you display or sell them? But I've got my answer because you've said earlier on that you've just opened a shop out front of your place or in front where we were there, somewhere there.
One day, I'll probably turn that that room into a shop. But no, I meant I had an online shop on my website. So there's two things happen. Either I sell work online. So every 6 weeks or so, I make an online shop on my website. And if anybody wants to sign up and get notifications for the shop, then just go to my website, tomkemp.com.
What is
tomkemp.com? Very easy.
Say
tomkemp.com. Go to the contact page and just sign up. Give me your email, and I will send you a notification when the next shop happens. They've got more and more successful. So the last one, yes, I sold everything. Just one very expensive pot didn't sell, but everything else did. And that's the first time I'd sold so many, and it all happened in the first 15 minutes, which is really no, that's not true. The first most of the things sold in 15 minutes, but it's weird when you're on Instagram or online, so many more people can see your work than traditionally. So of course, it's not uncommon that people will sell everything very quickly. So that's one outlet, but I also sell much larger pieces. So you saw those 3 very much bigger pieces. They will be sold through galleries in London. So I have 2 galleries in London that show my work as well. And but mostly through on.
Okay, you know what? It doesn't surprise me, or surprise me, I don't know, either way. I've spoken with lots of different artists around the world in my show, and like with painter, with sculptors, with lots of different artists around the world, right? They said what exactly you're saying. Like since the COVID-19 happened on the planet, actually people started they've got more time to go and are displaying online, and they're very the people, and also the different platforms such as Instagram. It's been helping a lot, and then helping people, artists in particular, to show and display or sell stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. So before COVID-19, it was also doing well, but yeah, I think you're right. There's a lot of people who, a lot of people are in trouble, and a lot of people are not getting as much money as they had before. They're losing their jobs. It's very bad for a lot of people. But there's certainly a group of people who are comfortable and looking for something to do online, and yeah, maybe coming to people like me and saying, exactly, yes, we'll buy your things.
So I have no more questions. There are thousands of questions, but I have to finish this conversation. Do you have any question for me?
For you, not questions so much as just you've had a very good idea here. Very good idea. I love what you've decided to set out to do this series of interviews. You've been very disciplined and dedicated to doing one a day, and very impressive. And I really hope it turns into something, with its own life, with a life of its own. That you get a team around you, or you just because it should do. There are so many people, literally millions of people are doing something interesting and unusual, and with their hands, or with their voices, with their bodies, they're doing artistic pursuits which often don't get the press that they need. And you're finding people who are doing, they're pursuing something anyway, like me. I'm going to do this anyway, whether somebody talks to me or not. But it's just, from my own point of view, as a listener, just to be able to see the range of human ingenuity and activity and thought, it's fabulous, really amazing. So I'll just say, well done.
Thank you. And I've been learning actually since I allowed my accent changed all of a sudden. Sorry. I've been learning a lot since I started running this show, and yeah, it's, as I've said to all artists, it's not about me, it's about you. And what people are interested in watching these sort of things, it's like each episode, it's like a live biography of that artist, which is quite interesting. It's not, I don't like a dull conversation. You know what I mean? And today I had best conversation, and it was such a lovely like learning and talking to you, and at the same time you just grab the camera, because this is one of the rules on my show. I don't want to have a dull conversation. I want each artist show us, or shows us like who that person is, and show us what he loves to do or what she loves to do, and that's my only role. So, and I'm glad I heard that. Like I've gotten lots of great feedback actually regarding of this, and it makes me feel really happy, because if I can help somebody, and someone might help me one day, you know what I mean? Like, who knows what's gonna happen? But my aim is like finding those who are quite unique, and my focus is not only on artists, and unique people, and that's my main desire, and that's what exactly I've been trying to do, and I'm learning.
Glad to hear it. That's all we can.
Yeah, it was such a lovely talking to you. Lovely? Is that how the English people say lovely?
Lovely. That's quite right.
It's so lovely talking to you. It was a real pleasure. I had a really great conversation with you, and I hope to see you one day in reality.
Of course. Yeah. Very welcome here anytime you like. Yes, of course.
Thank you. I hope so. You take care, be well, have an amazing time, and I will talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Thank you very much for watching us. I had a great conversation with Tom Kent. If you want to know more about Tom, you can go to his page and figure that actually I had a conversation with this amazing artist. You take care, be well, keep your smile, and look after yourself.